Just you and me, kid.
What's up, Matt?
Living the dream.
Yeah, same here. I'm just pulling us. I'm just setting my screen up here.
I didn't get links I just got the studio link from Nick. I didn't get a link to share. But I think your list that you send to has all of my people that are regular attenders in it.
Oops. There we go. Now I can. So we had a pretty good show yesterday, and it's interesting. We highlighted one of the undervalued items. For some reason, I can't pull this up to my. There we go. Spruce MSR, and it's trading at the same price. 1650 and 2100 was trading close to 2 and better. And we all know the move that makes in Q3 and early Q4. And Greg tried to call a few people this morning after we did it. He's already long the trade. And guess what? After you highlight something like that, a whole bunch of people go in and start buying it.
Well, let's highlight a beach house that I want to get rid of or something. But
yeah,
all right.
Yeah. There we go. Now I'm pulling you up here. All right. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to Lunch with Lumbermen. Matt Lehman, Lehman's Guide, and Ashley Buckholt, Materials Exchange. Matt, I got your email this morning kind of talking about, looking at the market. It's been a crazy market since we talked last time. Our buddy JP over at the Fed said not to worry about any banks. And this morning I wake up and there's a bunch of banks to still worry about. But I guess,
that's kind of like it's let's see if I can make a lumber trading analogy. Trust me, there's a truck under it. I promise you it'll be there tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then you turn around. Are you going to get that truck bought today or not?
So the reason I kind of highlight that, we've been chatting to people this week about, these regional banks, obviously the national ones, but especially the regional level, loan a lot of money to multifamily builders and to other people, right? So, what does that mean long term? What's going on there? I mean, we go to the cash market. I saw you were talking about where's cash going to. I mean, if I look at Euro right now, 12, 14s and 16s, and I back freight out to BC, I mean, you're already in the 320 mil level and have been bouncing around there for 2 weeks. People are sending number 3 or the Euro to job sites for number 3 spruce. 4-inch pine started to crack a little bit late last week, early this week. Other items, what are you seeing out there?
Very same thing. It's another bear market rally that's fallen short of expectation. I mean, we've had almost a whole year of that. Every time there's a bump that seasonally should happen, it looks like it creates the illusion of being underbought, but I don't think it's not getting underbought. People are just buying all they need to be able to get by, and supply is still ample and abundant enough that you don't need to carry 12 weeks of inventory this time of year. You can cut it back to 4.
Yeah, there's no doubt. So the kind of inquiry I'm seeing now, Matt, that comes across the platform and people calling, these are big buyers that normally would buy rail car or obviously full trucks where it's truckload. They're looking for mixed trucks now. And you want to know exactly whose stock it is, when it's going to deliver. Stuff that a year ago you didn't hear stuff like that, right? So
yeah. I think one of the things that's on the table too is I don't know if you've probably seen these pictures of wood that came from the docks. It looks like it's been sitting there for 12 years.
It's a good question. I went back and forth on the Twitter DM with the guy last night, and I haven't seen any yet from the mills that I deal with, right? Personally. So my question is, it's expensive to keep wood on a dock. So who would keep wood there for very long is paying an exorbitant amount of fee in storage, right? It's a lot of money. So the only question, somebody had a good point that maybe it's the way that they're rotating inventory. They've had so much on the docks, they can't get to the back of it. The first stuff that was in, right? And they're coming from the front back. I don't know. But I personally haven't seen that yet.
That would imply that there's a bunch of wood there that you can't. There's so much wood there that you can't get to the back.
Yeah, I don't think there's any more there. I don't know. I guess the question is, who's saying that? Is this somebody that, so there's two types of Euro mills right now. Euro mills that have drawn the proverbial line in the sand and don't want to take a number below a certain number. And then people that sell Euro or Euro mills that are just clearing the deck and take whatever orders. Because ultimately the best way to get orders is to just take them. So yeah, I haven't seen pictures of it yet, or nor have I dealt with it yet. So, these are all things that come up when people are trying to move their own inventory, right?
Well, the pictures that I've seen have been from dealers, from retail pro yards that have gotten trucks in. The whole batch of it just looks nasty. But
well, what's this isn't probably the time of the year to keep stuff when it gets warm at certain docks, right? But I don't know if it's.
Well, if you think about it, it's not just docks. It's wood. Some of the Canadian producers were shipping wood at the end of the year to get rid of it because they don't want to have to deal with low prices. So there's wood in reloads. There's wood that reload wood isn't necessarily dock wood. It's wood that's sitting like in Arizona, for example. The reloads there, that wood. There's a lot of storage, but it's all outside storage. And these big places are huge, and you can't sit there forever and expect the wind not to blow the wrapping off and discolor the edges of the wood. And
you know what you generally see, Matt, when you see that kind of stuff? You generally see human beings at trading companies moving to other trading companies.
Yeah, leaving their inventory behind.
I wondered when we'll start seeing that, right?
That's a good point. Yeah.
That's maybe we'll do it. But no, good point. So what kind of feedback are you getting? I wasn't going to say what number are you thinking? We got a couple interesting things. We go into expiration of May in a few weeks. Old May going to new May. I saw the CME got 1,000. Like they're starting to get some open interest in the new contract because if somebody's going to want to trade it, they're going to want to trade new contract. Let's talk about physical. Where do you ultimately see cash going to here on 4-inch? Already being the undervalued cheap item.
Tell me what's going to stop it without a number. What's going to make people start accumulating inventory where the mills sell more than they're making?
Yeah. Well, the thing that does that is real curtailments or increase in demand. And curtailments are always chopped to the level that's as close as they can get to breaking even. If you're making 1 million feet and you're selling 750,000, you're not going to curtail to 500,000. You're going to curtail to 750. So curtailments chase the market down. They're not. I can't remember a time when curtailments made the market go higher. And the curtailments come and they ride out the bad times until demand starts to kick in. And long term, the thing that turns around is when there's two less cars being produced than are being consumed, right? Long term.
Yeah, and actually, they don't even have to be consumed. They just have to be
absorbed.
Buyers have to be in an inventory accumulation mode. They've got to be buying more than they're selling or buying more than the mills are selling. It doesn't necessarily mean that they've got to be selling everything they're buying, but something optimistic has to happen to make somebody go. I mean, how long have we been talking about $350 is a no-brainer number to buy? Yeah. And everybody in the country's had a chance to buy it for 6 months, and it's still there. 330 is even there. But so when you say what's my number, I pick time rather than numbers, but time-wise, I got week number 30 as my next reversal low.
Okay.
This is week number 17.
So you think about it.
In the middle of that, one more thing. In the middle of that is the summer bump in July 4th week, which we get a little bit of bump for inventory protection while people are going to be off, but that's really not a rally. It's just a cessation of a downward move. But seasonally, there's nothing in here to make this market turn and go the other way. And what makes it go down is being overbought or oversupplied. And I just don't see the demand coming out. I think you've got two things that just really trouble me. One is the banking is the first thing. I don't think the bank stuff is restricted to just regional because it's got multifamily involved in it. Multifamily's kind of packaged as part of the commercial deals. At a lot of these banks, but I think the thing that's going to, a guy just sent me an email and said, "Are you not a believer in these statistics that we're talking about cancellations?" And home builders are saying that their cancellations were as low as they were back in COVID a couple of years ago. But that's 60-day old information. That's data we're getting that was happening before the banking crisis was even called a crisis, and before the escalation.
What are they asking you to be a believer in housing numbers?
They asked me to be a believer in that we're not going to get summer cancellations, and I think because of the banking lending crisis that's just now starting to come about in the commercial sector is going to spill over into probably multifamily first, and we're going to start to see even jobs that people have bought or they've given the specs for, and the lumber yards have bought the lumber for. The jobs aren't going to start till like September, October. Those jobs can get canceled, and I don't mean postponed. I just mean canceled, because if you can't get the lending for it, unless you're a company that uses your own money or VC money, but if you're having to go to some of these regional banks to get your money, or even some of the larger banks, you're not going to be able to do it.
Yeah, I saw a couple things out in social media yesterday about how new homes are increasing or doing better. And that only makes sense, right? If existing are still stalled right now because people don't want to move with 2.5% to 3.5% rates, the only place to go in town right now, so to speak, is to go buy new construction, right? And
Right, yeah.
and that's going to happen. I mean, sooner or later, though, and I've been thinking about this. It's not just divorce, moving, and some other things that are going to make people move. People are finally just going to get on with their life. I mean, when you sit and wait and if everybody's going to sit and wait for rates to drop, what if they go to 10%? I'm not saying they're going to, but I don't know where they're going. So sooner or later, people get on with their lives. And if they want to move, they're going to move. And there's also another way that housing changes and becomes more affordable, just relative to interest rates. The price could drop on houses too, right?
Well, and actually, you think about it, I've heard commercial values is already off as much as 40%.
When you say commercial values, you mean like commercial real estate?
Yeah, commercial real estate, like retail store space, office space, particularly Class A office space. And it's not that the prices are down, but it doesn't make any difference. There's still nobody wants to go in them.
Well,
office space that was there 3 years ago that's never been occupied, and you don't have 40 people to bring to work to do anything over the phones.
Well, here's a stat. And again, I'm going to give or take a few here. There was somebody posted something the other day about the level of people back in cities and in their business districts pre-COVID versus post-COVID. I think Chicago was back to 50%, right? And that's only half the people came back downtown. Some are working, flexible shifts. San Francisco was in the 20-something percentile range, and then various amount of cities in between. So nonetheless, I think commercial real estate, and we can all read the tea leaves, is in for a gut check, certainly in the next 3 to 6 months.
I've got a buddy that's in the commercial real estate business, and he was telling me that, speaking of San Francisco, there was an Class A office space that was 300, and the bank loaned $325 million on it, and they just did a new market analysis on it, or appraisal, and it was less than $1 million.
Thanks, Jared.
So they've gone from a $375 million property to something like a $75 million. I think the net loss was going to be $275 million. So I think it was 350 and down to 75, but it was going to be like $275 million difference in the value and the current value and the loan value. So I mean, that's just a property you can't sell that. The bank's going to end up with that. Nobody can take that. And you think that's can't be just one exclusive story in San Francisco. It's got
and that commercial real estate, I know nothing about it, right? Except what I read about it. That's a whole different kettle of fish, right?
Yeah, and the thing that I'm kind of concerned about too is that think of this: the size of a commercial deal is usually bigger than a residential deal, just because of the price of the land and all the kind of stuff that goes in it. But what happens when that stuff just sits there and goes and it doesn't go anywhere, and you're trying to buy a house, get a mortgage, and your banks can't loan you any money because they're having to support their commercial portfolios.
Mark LaFleur said, he said, just a little guy from Canada. Hey, Mark, how are you, man? Glad to have you on. So, what's crazy, Matt? So what, if you're a buyer, seller, somewhere in the supply chain in here, like, volatility starting to pull back. What can we tell people? What can we talk about that is interesting? I mean, we had this Sinclair announcement the other day. It didn't do much. I mean, and that goes to your thing. Are announcements really going to do anything? One thing, I was sitting in Riley's office on Saturday and we were BSing, or Friday, and we were pulling up some of these big publicly traded companies and looking at their balance sheet. And Greg goes, look at this. And he showed me the cash that some of these mills accumulated over 5 or 6 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we talked about there's $11 billion sitting in the kitty somewhere in the U.S. for quota and duty that's been collected, right? It's $11 billion. And we were talking about when is that going to be cut up again? Because these guys got
who's it going to go to? Is it going to go to the coalition for the work that they've been putting into it, or it's going to get refunded like it has in the past to the mills that paid it?
So here's the thing. I mean, somebody had a good point. We were on a conference call with somebody, and they go, "There's some." It was their guess that maybe they don't want to negotiate it right now because they're happy with the current quota that they have, and they know what it is, and they could potentially get a higher one if they renegotiate it. So, which kind of threw something different at me. I never was thinking about that. And he said, look at the balance sheets of the cash these mills have. They know they're going to get it back at some point, but maybe right now they don't want to cut it up, if that makes sense. I never thought about that.
They don't want to add cash to the cash pile. That's probably true.
Mark was saying still a lot of uncertainty, but a few inquiries coming in. Seeing remanners cutting 2x4 16 premium back to 2x4 8-foot premium. Well, Mark, you know what? That makes sense because we were talking yesterday on the show, 8-footers are trading higher than 16s right now, right? So, you can buy Euro 16s off the dock premium if you can and cut them back, I'm sure, to 92 and 5/8 premium. But that makes a lot of sense, right? And that's great information. I mean, 8-footers are trading, like we said, at a premium to 16s. Riley brought that up the other day, and I'm sure all the remanners out there and the big national remanners are all licking their chops looking at that, as they are probably, as somebody put, if there's any distressed portwood, there's probably some big remanners out there licking their chops to decide how they're going to get a hold of that.
Yeah, I think this is probably I haven't heard the statement yet, but 2x4 16 euro has totally single-handedly screwed up the entire 2x4 16 market and everything. I mean, it's the primary thing that builders want, and the primary product that Euro brings in, and it's always cheap. I mean,
well, Matt, let's do a little math on this right here. That was always the big part of the contract. If it traded between 420 and 450 16s, right?
That mill or dock or what?
At dock, there's about $140, $150 from BC to the dock if you did it and it loaded up a 16-foot. So let's say minus 120. That's like a 300 FOB mill on 16s, 320.
Nobody's selling that. That's just.
Well, I'm just saying that's a euro equivalent, right?
Yeah.
And if you added 12, 14s, and 16s and you backed it out, you're at 320, 330 mill, which is
now where the mills are today on there,
which is like a 428 new contract equivalent to 430. Right. I mean, so we'll go back. That's why Euro is making its way to number 3 job sites, right? Because
it's making its way further inland as well. It used to be, a year ago, it would only go to the first couple of states off the coast, but now it's going further in, 4 or 5 states.
We've shifted. We've had people ship it back to Colorado.
So I guess it's kind of countrywide then.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. So I was just curious whatever Mark, I appreciate that. That's a great thing. Everybody's doing is so. What Mark says that is people are trying to figure out ways to make money off of arbitrage and undervalued, overvalued in the market for sure.
I would like to ask to the audience if anybody wants to participate. What are you expecting for the summer? Do you think housing's going to kind of fall prey to some of the political and banking economic woes that are going on, or is it going to trudge through because there's still a supposed supply shortage that is keeping that market going? What do you guys think?
That's a good question. I think builders though are pretty happy with. They're finally got that thing where they're actually at a level of homes where they can complete them, right?
Yeah, we're actually completing more than we were starting. We're like $1.5 million, which kind of lets you know that we got the $1.2 million that we were looking at the start of the pandemic was kind of a low end of what we could complete. But I feel like we've established 1.4 as a range where we can complete, which is a little better than the last couple of years. But still, it's not $1.8 million, and the question is, are we making enough lumber for $1.2 million, $1.4 million, $1.6 million, $1.8 million? I would say we're not $1.8 million, but I would think that we're certainly making enough lumber to accommodate $1.4 million.
One of the things, again, not my idea, but somebody smarter than me brought this up a couple weeks ago, chatting with him on the phone, and he said, "Hey, he goes, curtailments are one thing. He goes, but idle capacity that can be brought back up at a moment's notice is another thing. And the market knows that, right? So let's say Southern Yellow Pine or OSB mills, ride the clutch a little bit or slow things down because of the way that they bring logs in and more gatewood, they can be back up and running pretty quickly, right?
Yeah, you know what people are what they're going to throw at you right away is labor. Come back, but
I'll throw it. That's also a reason why people don't close stuff too, right? Because they don't want to lose their labor.
Yeah, and instead of cutting a shift out, you cut 2 shifts back to 6 hours a piece, and you keep everybody on the job.
Yeah. I like talking about shifts because I think of Canadian hockey when people talk about different shifts, right, coming on and off the ice.
That's a sport I don't care anything about.
I'm starting to watch a little bit more about it. I went to a Hawks game.
I like the action of it, but I can't ever see the puck. They need to think like a NASCAR, the little arrow thing that goes around and shows you where the puck is.
They tried that back in the 90s, circling it, and then they figured when HDTV came out, they could pick more. But so wanted to pick your brain a little bit here without giving away too much information because it's valuable when people join Layman's Guide. How were some of your roundtables that you had? What are people? I mean, you kind of have you're kind of plugged into the matrix there when you have all those people and you get a lot of information back that you don't normally get. Because one thing, people like talking to you when they won't tell people what they're thinking to other people sometime, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like it's funny, like you're gonna divulge your secret position. But really, when you start to talk to everybody, you realize that it's the same stuff that's happening over and over and over again. You can tell when wholesalers are long and trying to liquidate a position, and they say like, "Well, the market looks good right now, but I think in probably 3 weeks we're going to be hitting a bottom." And you can listen to the conversations that people tell you and know whether they need to buy if they're a dealer or whether their inventory is good, or if you're a broker and they've got wood that they need to sell and what their next position is going to be. And I'm kind of feeling like that from the conversation I'm hearing, that if you take the inquiries that brokers are getting are fewer, so the brokers are probably getting short, and they're talking the market down for a couple 3 weeks because that's going to be the time when they need to buy. But you also don't want to be. It's kind of risky being short under $350 too. That's just as a kind of a look back at history kind of thing. Not that we can't go lower, and I think my number is 280 that I've got just in my head. I think we'll get to 280, and the reason is it's got nothing to do with, like you said, these mills that are losing money on SPF have still got bankrolls in the bank from making bank through COVID and also from their Southern Pine investment. So I
just about how efficient they are. They do such a good job cutting lumber. I mean, you know, so Canfor posted 160. Kyle put 67 operating loss in November. Any thoughts on impact moving forward? I mean, I guess the question is how much do they have in the bank, right? I gotta look that up. And I guess the whole thing is how much does West Fraser have in the bank, and are those two companies going to play a game of like who? I mean,
I don't know, but I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to do that again. I wouldn't want to say, well, let's tough it out for another $170 million for another quarter.
Yeah, and I think they've already made. I think they've already made some cuts, right?
Yeah, everybody's made some, but it doesn't. It just appears like it's not enough, and I don't understand the dynamics of how you curtail and when you curtail or what you curtail. But it seems to me like when you're losing money, that's when you start to try to do something to increase your or lower your overhead or increase your sales average. But
yeah, my guess is you're going to see more curtailments. I mean, that's, you remember going back 2007, 8, where, you basically all of a sudden had this slug of freaking announcements and they tracked it on random and you just kept seeing it and the price kept falling. I hope we're not in that situation. I don't think we are, but I'm not smart enough to know that. So this is the same question we brought up 5 months ago, when the prices started dropping and people said that this wasn't going to continue. The one thing I've noticed from being in the industry a long time, unfortunately a long time, fortunately, however you want to look at it, prices can always go a lot lower and stay there a lot longer than we all realize as to why or how and all that kind of stuff. So I feel for the mills here because they're in a tough situation. I'm glad they were able to make some money and bank it while they were able to, because it's a commodity and we go through these swings all the time. And a lot of good friends of mine are at the mill. So I hope we can right size this ship quickly, right? Shane McDonald, more Canadian wood will migrate south come this summer months as 2023 tariffs change for some Eastern producers such as Resolute. That's a good point. And Kyle comes after a $199 million loss in Q4.
Apparently, yeah. 200 is a number they can live with for quarter to quarter. But.
Yeah. And Earl Heath, are you guys seeing any immediate effects in U.S. markets from the Sinclair curtailment announcement earlier this week? The only thing I heard is in Chicago, there were 2x4 9s jumped from like, $50 overnight on truckload. So they make 8s and 9s. I'm sure that there was some type of, especially if you want that product.
Studs were already doing a little better than random before that even started. So, and Sinclair makes a good product. So I haven't seen just a wholesale, all of a sudden studs are $100 higher because Sinclair curtailed. I'm not seeing anything like that.
Well, so Matt, the shows are getting some good traction. I mean, one of our shows last week had, a couple hundred people. Greg and Matt and I did a show. We had 500 people watch it since yesterday.
Awesome.
And we did a new Twitter Spaces Sunday and had 750 people already look at that. We're going to launch another one today at 4 and try that one out. But the one thing that I noticed that people do like is information, right? And they're coming here for information. So you and I have had these off the phone conversations about information too, right? And how to monetize that information.
Yeah, which is code to you guys. We're going to start charging for this.
Earl said, great stuff. Thank you, guys. Yeah, no doubt. Kyle said, we see studs as the most liquid items. Yeah, no, good point, Kyle. Like I said, if you want to show up at some of these shows, we like to give what's undervalued and overvalued. Got no axe to grind. I'm not long or short anything. So, I'll tell you what I think is good to buy and what's good to sell, and it'll arm you with information when you have people calling you trying to sell you something that's overvalued.
What are you seeing, Nancy? What are you seeing? I know you're limited to the exposure of who lists things, but are you seeing anything any change in anything like 2x12 Southern Pine, which was really hard to get for a while?
2x4 Southern Pine. I saw a lot of people looking to move that in the last 2 weeks, right? But it was overvalued. 2x6 Southern Yellow Pine, not so much. The wides generally move this time of year. I've seen a lot of people looking for them and a lot of people taking business on that. I think some people see a high number on the wides and take it short at the wholesale level. But I've seen a lot more people willing to try to trade pine in the last few weeks, which makes sense because that's probably the one that's got more volatility in it right now.
Yeah.
I don't know. You talk to the pine people a lot more. How I'm seeing people looking for MSR pine all over the place, right? We talked and highlighted again spruce MSR and how you can buy 1650. You could up until probably we highlighted it the other day at the same price of 4-inch, which is undervalued. Why wouldn't you buy it, right? I mean, I'm not telling anybody to do anything or recommending anything. 2x4 2100 SPF. If it's a slight premium, 2x4 2 and better, and you can buy that, why wouldn't you buy that, put it on the ground when it historically makes a big move, especially if you have trusses sold going forward and can make money on it, right? But if you look at where that moves in late third quarter and early fourth quarter, I mean, if you don't buy MSR historically, when you're talking to mills or anybody and you're buying 2 and better, ask them what their 1650 and 2100 price is.
I have a question because I haven't seen 1650 in person in a while, but the last time I saw it, 1650 did not look as good as premium
it depends what mill, right? I know some mills like Bay Bean, like one of Hampton's mills, I think they still do a visual override in a premium product. And I was explaining to the group in here today, you know, you can take a piece of dogwood and run it through an MSR machine and it may machine out as an item, right? But what people also want is plate holding capacity. They want it to look good. So a lot of them do what's called a visual override, or I guess now they'll grade it to a machine override where it's actually a nice looking product. That's something you want to ask when buying MSR is what's the visual on it?
You might even ask if it's something new for you to ask for a picture.
Yeah.
Get the middle city picture, because typically the wane requirements are less than what the premium grade is but you got to have minimum plate holding power or edges, so they might not look bad, but it just might not look as good if you're putting it in there trying to sell it for your retail.
Same on pine, right? Because a lot of these people mat on pine, especially 6-inch, 8-inch, 10-inch, and 12-inch pine. A lot of this is going into post frame buildings, right? Which you know, you drive a $400,000 or now $1.5 million combine into there. You don't want to look up and see wane if you just paid $300,000 or $400,000 for that building, right? You want to see beautiful fiber.
Even though you got mud on your boots, you don't want to see bark on your lumber.
Or like my buddy when he bought a brand new combine and he went to pull into his big building and realized that the combine was so big it wouldn't fit in it anymore. All right, well, cool, Matt. I appreciate it. What do you got going at Layman's Guide this week?
We're starting our new next education module is going to be coaching, and I've got a couple of guys that are going to help me. We're going to get a little team together for coaching for basically not just lumber, but other housing things like mortgages and interest rates and other components of the housing. A good example is that one of the guys was telling me that there's a sand shortage, which at some point is going to be a real problem for concrete, but it's also like 10 years out. But you think about like what kind of things could be a problem for us in the future. Now that's way out of reach, but you know, how do you replace sand? And it's probably the next 10 years we probably won't be using concrete. We'll find another 3D.
Is that where somebody, when you call them, they go tell you to pound sand?
It could be.
Yeah.
Pounded it gone. But anyway, we're going to start the next 3 weeks. We're going to be hosting a 3 weeks on. If you guys want to just kind of dial in, it's going to be on Thursdays at noon. It'll be the hour before this, and it's going to be just a coaching session that everybody's welcome to do. We're going to offer it on a month-to-month basis after the first 3 weeks of trial, just to see what everybody wants. But we'd love to have you guys come by if you want to.
Hey, Alan Taylor's on. I think I talked to him yesterday on the phone just to say hello to him. He said he knows you really well, Matt, or knows you from doing
he's
stuff.
A big help to me.
Yeah, good. Alan, it was good talking to you yesterday and catching up. And hopefully our shows are getting you some knowledge and helping out, Alan, because we appreciate everybody that shows up here as we keep building this channel up.
Sounds good.
All right, everybody. You have a great day.
See ya. Thank you.
Bye.